Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Manga Club. This is the series where I delve into manga that I've never read before and discuss my thoughts in videos like these. Last time I made one of these, it was the first ever Manga Club, and it was about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 1. And this time we're diving into a series that is just as much of an industry landmark, if not even more so. Yes, in the year of our Lord 2022, I am diving headfirst into the gargantuan tale that is One Piece. This series has been going strong since 1997 and is still pumping out new episodes and chapters to this day. Despite its longevity, I've been exposed to even less of this than I have with JoJo somehow, meaning I started reading this with no expectations and absolutely no idea what I was getting myself into. Now that I have started though, I say we get this ball rolling because we got over 1,000 chapters to cover. And counting, by the way. I'm going to begin my journey by talking about, of course, the first arc of One Piece called the East Blue Saga. It comprises about the first 12 volumes of the manga, so I'm going to split this discussion into 4 parts. 3 volumes each. So of course, today we're discussing the first 3 volumes, or chapters 1 through 26. Spoiler warning for the aforementioned chapters, and as always, I'd love to hear your own thoughts in the comments. So, One Piece by Eiichiro Oda is a story about Monkey D. Luffy, a young boy with big dreams of becoming a pirate, instilled in him by experienced pirate and Luffy's role model, red-haired Shanks, who gave Luffy a straw hat of his that he cherishes and holds on to this day. To this end, he wants to discover the One Piece, an elusive treasure that has been searched for far and wide ever since the notorious Pirate King Gold Roger announced its existence shortly before his execution, which sprung the world into a golden age of piracy. Aiding Luffy along his journey are his special powers, granted to him when he accidentally ate a magical fruit known as the Devil Fruit when he was young. These fruits are known for being great trade-offs because they give the user great powers, but makes them unable to swim, which obviously for a pirate isn't the greatest. In Luffy's case, it allows his body to stretch and deform in impossible ways. In these first steps in Luffy's journey towards becoming the Pirate King, we meet a few friendly faces along the way to recruit into a small crew, in the form of Zoro, an infamous swordsman, Nami, an outgoing bandit, and Usopp, a mischievous man from an island village. Together, the crew plans to travel to the Grand Line, a route in the ocean that is known for being extremely deadly and dangerous, but one that wraps around the entire world, and they're going to use that route to search for the treasure they're looking for. As the 3rd volume comes to a close, however, we learn that Usopp's village is actually in grave danger because of an incoming force of pirates known as the Black Cats. And Luffy, along with his new crew, now has to find a way to stop them. Thus, we're caught up to the story so far. Now that that's out of the way, I have a confession to make. I really didn't dislike very much about this at all. I mean, usually when I finish a piece of media, I think of all the positives and negatives and weigh them out, and it's kind of a mixture of that stuff in my head. But in this case, I kind of just liked everything about it, to be honest. Anything that isn't necessarily positive in my mind right now is more so just curiosity, wondering where things are going to go or how they're going to resolve certain things. Just wondering really hard about stuff I don't have the answer to yet, which honestly is kind of a positive in its own regard. That being said, I guess I'll begin by talking about something that used to be a negative to me, but was no longer an issue by the time I started reading, and that's the art style. There was a time, many, many years ago, when the only thing I knew about One Piece was that it was the pirate anime about the boy in the straw hat. Aside from that, I'd only seen the occasional screenshot or clip or piece of promotional art on the internet, and I hated it. At the time, I thought it looked kind of unnatural, amateurish even, just very off-putting for my brain, which as a kid was very limited in its scope of what it thought anime could be. Well, I'm very happy to report that that's no longer the case, and in fact, my opinion has completely flipped in that regard. The art of One Piece is phenomenal so far. Almost everything I used to see as strange and unappealing, I now see as an essential part of the storytelling and the identity of the property. I also may have to put at least some of the blame on the fact that the only version I saw before of One Piece was the anime, and even now, I think the small bit of anime I've seen, which is all from very early parts of the story, just simply can't compare to the dynamic and excellent line work that Oda does. It's actually kind of a problem that a lot of manga faces when being adapted into anime. I mean, first of all, you have things like budgets, time constraints, you have a bunch of people working on this trying to replicate the same thing. You can't really have the same weight, the same attention to detail in every frame because you have thousands of them to draw. So I understand it by all means, but it's something that's definitely very noticeable, and the One Piece anime does have that issue. At least, like I said, the very early stuff that I've seen. Regardless of any of that, I was stunned when I opened the book and found myself super enjoying the art on every page. The poses in every frame for every character are just so vibrant and well defined. The way the proportions and movements are like pushed to their logical extremes reminds me almost more of something akin to like a Cartoon Network kind of style, rather than like a traditional anime art style. Every punch feels impactful, every scream and every cheer feels super bombastic. I just cannot stress enough how much just the art does in establishing the personality and tone of this manga. Now, speaking of which, the general tone of the series so far is worth mentioning because it's really, really fun. Like I mentioned with the art style, the tone itself also has sort of a Saturday morning cartoon feeling to it, almost like you're watching an episode of Adventure Time or something. It's so unabashedly, unashamedly over the top and cartoony in all aspects, but it's wrapped up in this shonen package. That led to a cool combination that works really well, and I haven't really experienced with many other series. Even the villains follow suit with very overblown proportions, sort of video game boss design almost. They give off a kind of monster of the week thing that I'm really enjoying so far. Oh, this enemy has a giant axe for a hand, and this one has a clown nose and magic flying limbs. It's great. Makes every encounter memorable, even the ones with minor villains. Since I mentioned the clown villain, though, I just want to take a quick moment to talk about how great the entire encounter with Buggy was. He was a silly, yet menacing presence that got elevated to insane levels once his powers got revealed. Watching Luffy actually have to deal with another Devil Fruit user definitely automatically makes it more interesting. But also, the things that they used to win against him being his own powers, hilarious, great, amazing. Getting absolutely demolished in the crotch when his head is completely disconnected, or Luffy finding his feet and tickling them. Just super creative, super zany. I'm so looking forward to more Devil Fruit users, because this kind of power system really, really leaves it up to imagination. Like, it could basically be anything that Oda could conjure up, so I'm super looking forward to that, and I hope it lives up to that promise. Everything about this manga just screams adventure, which is appropriate considering it's a story about sailing across the ocean. The pacing actually tends to be a little slow and meandering at times, with the crew making a lot of detours or getting sidetracked from their main objective more times than I can count. And despite how negative that sounds, it works extraordinarily well for a story of this nature. Whether you want to call it filler or whatever else, nothing more concretely hammers home the idea that we're going on a voyage and exploring the unknown than stumbling across multitudes of random islands and people that we get to meet and spend some time with before we're whisked away to the next adventure. Something like the entire sequence with the deserted island and the man trapped in the treasure chest so perfectly exemplifies that. Not only was Treasure Chest Man just wildly silly, just what the hell, but the entire adventure felt like a sort of mini arc that our characters just so happened to stumble into, almost like a side quest or like a dungeon that you'd find in Elden Ring, which so perfectly captures the feeling of wanderlust that I think makes this series what it is so far. And honestly, when Oda is establishing the huge scope of this story so early on, it only makes me want to explore the world more and see what's out there and what the crew might find next. Now that I mention it, I guess we should talk a little bit about our crew. Luffy is obviously our leader, and I have to say, he was immediately very likable to me. I think it's really funny that he's often like a bull in a china shop, and it's completely unintentional. He just has like this natural chaotic aura that follows him wherever he goes. He's not a complete, like, bumbling idiot, though. He does have moments where you can tell he knows his shit, and he has a strong sense of self, very strong morals. You know, he's not just a moron as a main character, and I really appreciate that. And he also doesn't hesitate to get serious when necessary. First time we really saw any of that was in those scenes with Choo Choo the dog, which, by the way, was also the first time the series actually struck, like, an emotional chord with me. Those were, like, really heartfelt, enjoyable chapters, and genuinely made me pretty sad. But that same thing also became very apparent in any scene where Luffy's straw hat was involved. Being that it was given to him by Shanks, he treasures it very dearly, and Oda does a great job of showing the massive impact that Shanks had on Luffy as a young boy and how much he means to him even to this day. It's incredibly sweet, and it's a great detail of Luffy's character. The first crew member Luffy picks is Zoro, or as the manga likes to call him for some reason, Zolo. I've kind of had to train my brain to autocorrect that every time I see it. Anyway, Zoro is a character that can basically be summed up by the well-known concept of rule of cool. Like, his sword technique with one in his mouth is some of the goofiest, most nonsensical stuff I've ever seen, but, like, the dude makes it work. Seriously, he just radiates this badass energy that kind of just makes him impossible not to love. He's the kind of character who will just chill if he can, but will absolutely pop off on whoever's asking for it. His dynamic with Luffy, the contrast between Luffy's kid-like joy and Zoro's stoicism, it's already super enjoyable. I'm sure it'll only get better as they start to know each other better, but it's great. Then we have Nami, who may just be my favorite of the bunch. She has a very fiery personality that's immediately captivating and, like Zoro, provides a good contrast against Luffy. But instead of kid-like versus stoic, with Nami, it's more of her alertness and cunning that stands out against Luffy's just complete constant go-with-the-flow attitude. And all three of these together just form just an awesome dynamic so far. I really am enjoying that, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. Something I really like, though, is she's already coming around to the rest of the crew and understanding their mindsets a little bit better. She has a bad past with pirates, so it's nice to see that she's already kind of understanding that Luffy isn't like that. Luffy's kind of challenging her moral standpoints on pirates, and I can't help but wonder if there's even more to her fear and hatred of pirates than what we know so far. It's definitely something that could be delved into. Nami is, in a way, a character that kind of embodies the spirit of One Piece, as a cunning denizen of the sea who knows her way around, even earning her the title of navigator on the crew. I'm looking forward to spending more time with her and hopefully learning a bit more about her background. Lastly, during the last stretch of chapters, we were introduced to the newest member of Luffy's crew, Usopp. We haven't had a chance to learn a whole lot about Usopp yet, but we do know that he's a troublemaker in his village, and he's gained some level of malice from the villagers for it. He's not mean-spirited, though. In fact, he seems to have a big heart and actually a lot of love for people, as I think his little pseudo-pirate crew demonstrates. It's yet to be seen what kind of role he can fill or what he'll provide with the group dynamic, but so far, I am liking him. I really love that we're slowly seeing the growth of a single boy with a dream into a full group of pirates ready to take on the world together. I can only imagine how that progression will escalate later on in the series, because though I don't know anything about it, I do know that, I mean, obviously the crew grows, there are more characters, so I'm interested to see how that develops. But that's just about it for all of our main characters so far, and the story so far. At the end of the last chapter, we were left on a pretty huge cliffhanger with the pirates getting ready to attack the village. So it's yet to be seen, like, what they have in store for the crew or how they'll retaliate against them. I will say, okay, something I can't help but wonder about is, how are the stakes going to be raised or maintained in this series at all? Because at the current moment, Luffy, you know, he's more or less invincible. It's been revealed that even bullets can't hurt him, and he's been able to pretty effortlessly deal with all of the opposition that's come against him so far. Obviously, I trust that this would be done somehow. It wouldn't be so revered and so loved if they never figured that out, but it's just something I'm really curious about right now, only reading these first 2 volumes. Aside from that, though, I just have to say, I'm having an absolute blast with One Piece. I have yet to see why it's, like, you know, people's favorite thing ever. But I'm only a few volumes in. I don't doubt that I'll understand that a little bit more as the story and world is revealed to me a little bit more. For now though, just taking it for what it is in these early chapters, it's a massively fun and bombastic romp through the sea, and it's entertaining all the way through. And all in all, it leaves me super excited to see what Oda has prepared for me. That being said, this is going to be the end of this episode of Manga Club. So next time you see me talking about One Piece, I'm going to be talking about volumes 4 through 6, and we will be one step closer to finishing this first arc of this massive story. Until then, I want to thank you so much for tuning in, especially if you're still watching to the end. The last episode I made for this, the JoJo Phantom Blood one, which was the first one ever, received a lot more attention and engagement than I'm used to on my, you know, tiny little channel, and that made me really happy. I genuinely can't explain how much it means to me that that was the case. My favorite part of getting into any media is the community aspect and the discussions and everything, so the fact that I can provide something that people are actually engaging with and are interested in, yeah, that just means a ton to me. But anyway, if you do stick in for the next episode of Manga Club coming to the channel, it's not going to be One Piece. Instead, we're officially going to be ripping into... That was so bad. We're going to be ripping into the first few volumes of one of the newest phenomenons in the shonen genre, Chainsaw Man. So, until then, again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.